Yeah.
Like the minutes to reflect that we held an executive session prior to the meeting for personnel issues. Any comments on agenda items? Got it. Thank you. I like that. Okay, seeing no questions on agenda items, is there a motion for approval of minutes?
Motion. Second.
Rob and Margaret.
Holly was first, Rob's
Discussion, questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Whiteman?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Business and finance.
Motion approved. 1,
6.
1 through 6? Second. Discussion, questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
No, and staying on the Tyler bill.
And Mr. Clark?
Yes. Superintendent's report.
I'm asking for approval of item 1. The name to be announced is Kareem Boyd. She would be hired at a master's plus 18, step 12, which is $66,734. And then items 2. Item 3, add Sharon Dixon to that list of volunteers. And then on the supplemental agenda, items 1, 2, and 3. Motion approved as recommended.
Second. Questions, discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
In addition to that, I just wanted to update the board on a couple things, if I could. One of them is that we continue to meet with UGI and the borough. We had a meeting this week about the gas line project that's going to be coming through town. And they have assured us that they would give us 1 week's notice before we have to reroute the buses. This is going to cause a significant disruption in our busing, especially at the end of the day. And it will require us to bring buses down through town, which I know was a concern prior to the consolidation, and we worked hard to eliminate that concern and to show the community that it could be done a different way. We ask for your patience because during this project, we will have to run buses on Tioga Avenue and also on Route 29. So we ask for your patience. Worst case scenario they're giving us is about a 10-week time frame. And so I'm not really sure when that's going to start. We'll try to give parents and the community lots of notice, at least a week, so that you can plan accordingly. But we will cooperate with this project in moving the town of Tunkhannock forward and getting natural gas, and we'll be good neighbors, and we're going to do the best that we can with the situation. So stay tuned for that. Let's see. I also wanted to mention that we are a part of, we made an application to a multi-million-dollar grant that the state has made available to do upgrades for safety. And so based on a threat assessment that we had done this summer with an expert, who walk through all of our buildings, we have made an application to this grant. And so far, we're still competitive in the running. I wanted to mention that some of the things that we are putting in the grant are bollards, which are the cement blocks outside of each building. We're looking at upgrading all of our glass to a ballistic grade glass instead of some of we already have some of that, but making sure that it's all done. More interior and exterior surveillance cameras for the intermediate center and for the primary center. So this is these would be significant improvements, and we're looking at trying to, and hopeful that we'll get the grant to do these things. So I just wanted the community and the board to know we're still working on safety, always working on safety, and we'll continue just to make improvements to all of the buildings.
And that amount is what, 380,000?
380,000.
And who's it through?
It's a Pennsylvania, help me here, Rich, Pennsylvania,
It's Act 44.
right.
It's safety and security for schools.
Yeah, but it's not coming through PD, it's coming through another source. Bob, if you call me tomorrow, I can give you that so we get it right.
Okay.
I just don't want to,
It's PA something.
yeah, but it has to do with crime and safety and so. I don't know, we'll keep our fingers crossed. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Committee reports. Dr. Bourbeau.
Yes, I have, from the extracurricular committee, in speaking with the coaches and with Kenny, and I see Kenny's not here, we had a tough schedule this year with the fall sports because of the weather, field conditions, and a lot of people out in the community brought some concerns, both to maybe Mr. Bosher, but I know Kenny and myself and some of the other coaches. I did receive, and the board was copied on a very nice letter, very respectful letter about some input from the community about what we can do. One of the issues was brought up was a synthetic multi-purpose field where the football field is now. And I know there's always been talk about that. I've had discussions out there in the community with parents, taxpayers as well. And the request was to look at the feasibility of this. And obviously, funding is an issue, but I think it's something that, you know, in talking to this particular citizen, I don't see a reason why we can't look at it. Just to get numbers and feasibility, look at safety for kids, look at ease of scheduling, look at, you know, multiple sports, multiple grade levels using the facility, community using the field. So I just bring that up. I think other board members may have spoken to other community members. So
Yeah,
just wanna
I
bring
mean,
that to the board.
this is not traditionally my area of terrible interest. I know you've got that pegged. But, this year, you know, one of my kids was playing junior high soccer and their season was a mess. And it wasn't, you know, the sports office's fault. It wasn't, you know, somebody not doing something they should. The soccer field has zero drainage apparently, and it could have not rained for 3 days and the field was still too wet to play on. To the extent that the kids were joking, like, watch the ice, because they'd go to stop and they didn't. Well, you've been there, you've seen it, Mr. Kaiser, like. So in the meantime, in the long term, I do agree with Bill that we should be looking at what is the feasibility, what are creative financing options or outside resources that we could, you know, tap into for that someday. But in the short term, I'd really like to get somebody in there before next soccer season to just tell us what's wrong and what we need to do to fix it, that field. Like, I'm sure there's some costs associated, but not the same as a turf yet. You know?
And Todd, help me out, Mr. Bosher. I know Kenny spoke about getting somebody in there to look at the drainage. Especially, where the biggest problem was soccer. The field up on the hill with Roslyn. It was a mud bath pretty much the whole year. So I know Mr. Janeski is looking into that, and I think that's the first thing. That's the short-term effects, and that was discussed with this particular parent, by the way.
Drainage
Who
tile would
this
go-
year is still swollen, I think, from.
Drainage tile would go, some sort of drainage tile in that field would go a long ways towards.
Absolutely. And I know in the back of Roslyn where the lacrosse fields are, I think that it's a very similar thing in the springtime.
Yes.
So I just want to bring that to the board's attention. I know the letter was sent to most board members, but I'll be happy to circulate the copies. I know some people didn't get this, so
Now,
I will.
Did you say extracurricular, a meeting about it, or?
No, it was just brought to me as the extracurricular chairman.
I think it started with a text saying, hey, athletics guy. We
No,
gotta fix
actually,
this.
This year is swollen because it was yelled at for 10 minutes on the sideline of a soccer game. So,
But I mean, it is true, the kids do work hard, and the coaches put a lot of time and effort into it for all the teams, and if there's something we can do that's reasonable to make it so that their seasons can happen. You know, one of the concerns was, so many games get canceled, now at the end of the season, they're playing games 6 out of 7 nights of the week. Or, you know, games that just never get rescheduled, because then the season deadline is over.
and I think we should make it clear, I haven't heard anybody say that we need to go out and spend $800 or $1 million or whatever it is, gonna be, you know, in the near future by any means. I heard creative financing or sources of revenue someplace else. I don't think that would be coming out of our general fund, that kind of money. I think the entire board recognizes that we're not in that kind of position.
absolutely.
Although it was on my list if I'd won the Mega Millions. I was gonna put a turf in, and I was gonna name it the Bill Bowl Memorial.
That keeps coming up, and you use memorial. God! Thank you.
Maybe it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, I think so.
Has your wife cost more life insurance or what?
Thank you, Mr. Farr.
You're welcome.
Do you want me to go back to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to, I missed it on my list, but I want to give you an update as far as the mold remediation for Mill City and for Evans Falls. And that is almost complete. We're going back in and taking air quality samples again at Evans Falls, but that cleanup is done. At Mill City, it is,
The phase 2 of the cleaning started today, and
Okay.
we'll probably wrap up sometime mid next week, and then we'll go back in and we'll do air quality sampling again, and that should conclude the cleanup efforts.
and once we do that, then we will be contacting a realtor, and that we have an agreement with, and they will actually be starting the appraisal process on those buildings. Okay? So, the other thing that I had kept you up to date on was the lead testing. So we did multiple lead sample testings at the primary center, and all of them came back with 0, except for one sink that came back, and it was a boys' bathroom, and it came back with a non-actionable level, but there was some detection. So, per the instructions of our contractor and our consultant, we have isolated that area and we've turned off the water and it can't be used. So we're waiting to hear what their recommendation is. Again, it was a non-actionable level, so it was, am I saying that right, Holly? Meaning that,
So it was one sink in the building out of multiple tests, which means it's most likely in the fixture, where they used to use some lead in the solder, and actionable level is 15 parts per billion in the state of Pennsylvania, and it was below that. So you're talking parts per billion, this will be an easy fix when we do it, and
so we're waiting for the recommendation. Most likely it'll be to change out the fixture and then retest. And so, that's what we've done. So I just wanted to keep everybody, but we were really pleased, because the majority of the tests came back with 0 detection. So we'll continue to be vigilant about it and to always keep the kids safe. So I'm sorry I forgot that.
All right?
Okay.
Very fine. Thank you.
I just want to add real quick that Shana and I went last week to the Pennsylvania School Board Association Conference, which was awesome, and I would actually throw a challenge out there that everybody else up here with me try to go for a day next year, because it is, we sit here and we make decisions and we do things, but when you're there, you come back kind of, and Shannon may agree, you come back inspired and energized about what we're doing, and you have ideas, and, it kind of helps define your why. Like, why are you doing this? And I just always enjoy it. I kind of dread it when it gets closer to that time, because away from home and all this other stuff, but once I'm there, I think everybody should go for at least a day next year. So, we'll have that conversation, I'm sure, next June, and see what we can get everybody to do.
I think it was very helpful, and it was awesome to go. You can meet a lot of people that are in similar situations to our district, that have consolidated schools, and it was just very interesting to talk to people and hear their take on where we are from their situation. And there's a lot of, our goals are a lot of the same districts far and wide in Pennsylvania, which I thought was really neat. And I agree with Holly, it's really something that I think everybody could enjoy. Learn a lot.
Right, it helps you see like what things are Tunkhannock just knocking out of the park. We're just ahead of a lot of other districts and what we're doing with that thing. And it's like, well, here's an opportunity area too. Here's something we could be doing differently. Here's something I would have never really thought of. Like, one thing I was so excited to go to this one session about a school that really just put the nuts and bolts out there about start times for the kids. And I was expecting to go in there and learn something, and then only to find out that we're already doing what it took them to, like, 3 years of research and decision-making to do. Because they were just trying to get to close to an 8 o'clock start. They were starting at like 7:25 in the morning. So afterwards, I'm thinking, well, that was kind of a waste of my time because we were already there. So, it's both energizing and informative.
And there's also an amazing student spotlight section that I don't know how we get there, but it's something worth
We have to
looking
start,
into.
we have to figure out
because
how
we
to
have a
send
lot
some of
more
our
stuff
kids.
than was there.
Because, our kids are doing a lot cooler stuff than what some of the things were there for you to see, so.
And we talked about that the whole way through the hallway, about
Yeah, it's
what
like-
great things we have, and our kids can do that, and we have this, and it would be really neat. It would be
There's a
something
mission
for
our
them.
administration.
Yeah.
And how they're good.
I mean, I didn't see a single robotics team there.
No, I didn't see one either.
And it would be great to have that there to show like, I'm not saying this to put other schools down, but there were definitely obvious areas that gave the example of how Tunkhannock is doing things a lot better. And there's no reason for the people not to know that.
Sure.
Fabulous. Thank you.
So that means you're gonna go next year? We have it on tape now.
We'll see.
It'll be on YouTube. I heard John Burke volunteer too.
Speaking of committees, we're needing an executive, or a nominating committee for December. Holly, would you be on that?
For what?
Nominating committee?
To nominate who?
Officers in December.
Just say yes.
You could become the interim president.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Oh, shit.
So the answer is yes?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Pergola, would you as well?
I did that already. I was thinking maybe a newer board member might wanna.
Well, I thought one that done it and one that hasn't done it.
Okay, yes, I'll be happy to.
Fair enough.
I'll be happy to.
Let me know what you come up with.
Okay, go on to unfinished business. We have some budget transfers from the last meeting that we need to review.
Mr. President, if I may,
Yes, sir.
on those items, one's under new business and one's under unfinished business for the transfers. I believe that what the board asked for last time we met was, who are we taking it from, which account, and where's it going? The information is what we're buying here, which is fine. It's just, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I wanna know what Peter's getting robbed.
I have the information from last month, so that was a follow-up that I did after our meeting last week, or after last week, 2 weeks ago. So for the items on page 44, that first account code it's out of a field trip line item into a software line item for the purchase of Nearpod's software. The second item in the sum of $500 is out of a workbooks line item into a subscriptions line item for both the comic creator as it's listed here, and I believe also a Scholastic Math subscription might have been included in that as well. And then the last item of $671 is out of a STEAM supply line item into an art supply line item.
What was that first one, steam supply?
Yeah, so there's a specific item line item for STEM related,
STEM.
yeah, including the art into a specific art line item.
That was the information I was looking, so we're looking to cut down on field trips? Pay for software? My question?
That's,
The first line item.
Yes.
$3,510. We're taking it out of the field trips to pay for software.
That was, yes, we are.
I'm not sure that means that we're not supporting field trips.
I don't know how much was in that line item to start with, so there may be enough for any kind of planned field trips left there. It was an adjustment. It didn't change the bottom line.
Any other questions?
Motion approved.
You have a motion, do you have a second?
I'll second it.
You have a first? Kabul? Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Okay, new business. Visa account there for your review. We have item 2, looking for another budget transfer.
Motion approved.
Do you have a second?
Second, just move on.
Mr. Wagner? Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Absolutely.
Mr. Weidner?
No.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Item 3, looking for resolution to approve
Motion approved.
Rural Health Corporation. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Last item on the agenda, to approve the field trip, away field trip to the robotics team.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion?
Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do well, they usually do.
Yes, they do.
Roll call.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mr. President, before we move on, can I bring up one more item?
Yes.
And maybe we'll bring it up next meeting, but I just want to open it up. Kelly Services, we hired them to do a job, and every bit of information I get, they're not doing it. They're not cutting it. And we got to do something about it. Now, it's either one or two things, one of several things that we can, I imagine we can do. One, let's take a look at what we pay substitute teachers, because it's not enough to bring them in. They won't come here for the same thing we pay Dallas. They won't do it. They don't want to make the trip, and I don't blame them. Number 2 is, if we can't find somebody, let's find another company to do it. And number 3, let's not overcrowd our classes. If we can't find a substitute for that day, why don't we move the administrator in there to cover for that day?
So, Bill, just so you know, I spent a lot of time this week researching, making recommendations to you about sub rates. And so I've gathered a lot of information. I just didn't feel prepared yet tonight to come, okay? So it's in the works.
I brought it up.
Number
Let's have it
2.
next meeting.
Yes, you will. And so I was hoping I'd have it for tonight, but I just couldn't get it all together. Number 2, we have looked at, and are doing some research into other companies that also provide the same service. So I do have 2 of those companies, and Shane's doing some research on those right now, as far as what that would be. And with regard to the 3rd, I know that administrators have been in the classrooms. I know that they're doing their best to cover these classes, and it is an ongoing problem. So we're just trying to be more creative. I've had numerous discussions with Summer as far as how we're doing this. So I think it's a work in progress, and it will get better, but we need to solve the problem. And the problem exists, like you said, it's complex. There's the sub rate, and with that, what's the risk if we raise the rate and we don't attract anybody? So I'm trying to. That was the point that I got to today and said I can't answer that question, so I'm not going to take it to them yet. But that's, I'm pretty far along in doing, crunching the numbers, so, we understand that we have a problem. It creates a lot of stress on the staff, on the administration, but most importantly, it creates a lot of stress on the kids.
Absolutely.
So we have to do better. I agree.
And I realize the budget's a tight thing, and we gotta watch it, and I agree with watching it.
Mhm.
But when I'm talking about first, third, sixth grade children, I'll spend the money.
I agree.
Our contract with Kelly is not exclusive, right?
I can't answer that.
Because I remember at the time, because we brought them in right after you brought me in, and at the time, my understanding was a really not a choice, because all of our subs were signing on with them, and so they were getting booked somewhere else before we could get them, so we weren't able, we kind of were pushed into it. But I really thought at the time, it was said that it was not exclusive, that
I'll check on that. I don't know. I haven't looked at the actual contract with them. I've just been paying more attention to, what's their rate. Like, when we say we pay $85 for a sub, how much are we actually paying on top of that? So, I have all that, and I can answer anybody's question, but I haven't pulled the file of the contract and actually looked at it, so I don't know the answer.
Do you know how that hiring event went on?
Yeah,
Monday?
we signed up too.
Two more than you had the day before.
Two more than we had the day before.
And they're both local, I mean, so I think that there's a good, high likelihood that.
Right, we
They
did
will
do
be in
an
the
event
classroom.
and tried to attract more people.
Is there such thing as emergency certification for this kind of stuff? Like,
Yes, if you have a bachelor's degree, you can get emergency certified and you can work as a substitute.
so put that in the paper.
Please.
Because I'd rather have somebody educated in there trying to do the best they can for the kids than cram all these kids in a room and the teacher can't really do anything productive with them.
And one class is a little bit further along or a little lagging behind, and the kids get confused. We need stability.
I don't think the Kelly Services contract has we're not locked into a certain time as I recall.
Well, addition to that, when we did it in-house, I'm sorry, Mrs. Lawson, I'm gonna pick on you just a little bit. We had retired teachers that were on it. Retired teachers would not deal with Kelly Services.
Well,
So
Bill, that
we've
was,
got a pool out there that,
right, and that was why we tried to do this hiring event, so that we could make it simple, and we said we want everything done in the same day, right? We had the fingerprint, the mobile fingerprint here, we tried to make it as simple as possible, so.
Were they
we-
making them do all the testing online and stuff too? Because that was the biggest complaint I heard after we first signed on with them was, I'm not a teacher, I don't know all the terms. But there was tons of like online testing, like there were teachers trying to get in with Kelly who have already taken all these exams, have already been certified, and then to get on with Kelly, they had to take a whole bunch of other tests online.
I don't know about tests, I know they probably have to go through the child abuse.
No, these were like, not aptitude tests, somebody else know the words I'm looking for?
When we discussed it with them, what they shared with us is they do have an orientation that is required. If it's somebody who's a retired teacher, they can waive that process. But if it's somebody who is going through emergency certification, they do require that there's a training module that they go through. I don't recall in our conversation with them that they said anything about a test that really is about measuring their ability to, be in the classroom or anything to that.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, no,
it's
again, this is right after we signed on with them, so things might have
Okay.
changed, but it was somebody who was a teacher, like not an emergency cert, like actual teacher. And he called me, he's like, why the heck would I go through all this effort to be a temp and deal with all the rest of the crap that comes along with it, like, he was already subbing for us and then he just didn't anymore.
They
It's,
do have an online application process. Now, that also could be somewhat cumbersome. I mean, it is very similar to a paper process where you do have to go through your employment history and so on and so forth.
no,
But
it was some kind of actual,
Yeah,
screening of
I'll
some
do some-
variety.
I think there is something to test, somebody was recently trying to do it, and they said there was, and I mean, I don't know if it's a test per se, but
I know one of the advantages that we were told would be going through Kelly was retired teachers are limited as to, you have to go through other you get to choose them last versus teachers that have not retired. And they're limited in how many days, how much time they can actually work because of the pension. Whereas if they're working through Kelly, they're not working for the school district, that does not come into play. That was one of the benefits that we were told at the time, we would have by
Yes,
going
but
to
our
Kelly.
retired teachers didn't sign up for it. They refused to. And I know a few of the teachers that were those individuals.
Yeah, I got that same feedback at the time.
Okay.
But is there something, well, that's something to find out in the contract. Is there something saying that we put?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
check on that tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? Questions? Don't see many hands. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Thank you, everyone.